Oxford, despite it having this air of being traditional, has this really radical course in the middle of all this grandeur and history. It's been 20 years since the Women's Studies course was set up, and we couldn't think of a better time to bring all these fantastic women together to show off their work and to really celebrate this fantastic course.
Women's Studies is an interdisciplinary attempt to produce an account or an understanding of the inequality of women in our culture and through history. And very often it's sort of moving between different disciplines to arrive at that understanding.
It's about inserting narratives into the academy that have previously not been there. And we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of years of scholarship where women have just been invisible.
Always questioning yourself, being questioned by others, and interrogating the methodologies you use is something that's very particular to women's studies as I've encountered it.
Universities and educational institutions are places of sort of enormous resource for thinking, resource for archive, and those archives shouldn't be closed to women and to feminist study.
I once was told that they didn't understand why I studied women's studies because I was ignoring the issues of half the population.
How dare they say that you're doing half the population when you spent your undergraduate degree studying dead white men?
Very often women's studies, partly because of its political imperatives, tends to be grounded in development, in social sciences, but we also need, if you like, to commit ourselves to thinking about women's art practices, women's performances, the literature that's available to us, music, dance, all of those areas, rather than making women's studies or gender studies simply a sort of subdivision of the social sciences, political theory, political history.
I knew I wanted to do gender studies or women's studies, and I guess because I came from a background in humanities, I really enjoyed social sciences, the idea of it, but I was a bit of unknown territory. So women's studies here allowed me to do both.
I found it to be a very unique space in that it has used my humanities background while offering a lot of theory and also a lot of opportunity to engage with things that might have not been available to me in other places. So taking courses in international development, at least for me in the States, that's not something I would have been enabled to do coming from the background that I have, and that's been very enriching and formative for me.
That point just after you've done your first degree, or when you're coming back to education, is a point where you might want to expand your horizons and not shrink them and not confirm what you already know. So women's studies, along with other interdisciplinary degrees, gives you that opportunity to think more broadly and to think about the way that people are thinking across the disciplines and what you might want to take from that.
We all came partially because we were feminists, and that was always like an integral part of all of our being. And you think you're critical, and then you get taught how to do it more systematically with a lot more, weight behind your knowledge, and you just think, I have so much further to go, and that's really exciting rather than daunting, I think.
You have this group of women doing this amazing kind of projects, and they're so diverse.
We'll come from disciplines from theology and engineering and history and literature and all sorts of different degrees, and we're now seeing people studying the collaboration of female rappers in the 1990s, medicalisation of PTSD, the training in the US Army along gendered lines. We're seeing people like ELERI studying fag hags, breeders and idols.
Well, I thought I was going to be a medievalist when I arrived. I had a whole Robin Hood dissertation plan. I wanted to get married in Robin Hood, and I spent time doing those core modules at the beginning and also taking women in film, and my mindset completely changed. As soon as I found this, I was like, okay, this is it, this is for me, this is important and powerful. I wouldn't have been able to make that disciplinary jump if it hadn't been for an interdisciplinary course like women's studies.
One of the core arguments around women's studies is that it can't be purely academic. It's always connected to the larger debate about gender and sexuality, the crisis around sexuality, or the crisis around inequality in our culture.
The openness from us bringing our own activism or our own interests that aren't strictly academic and bringing them to academic work, and actually being openly and actively welcoming of that, I think is really unique to the study.
Yeah. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our speakers and panellists for coming today, particularly our keynotes, Professor Ross Ballister, Dr. Lucy Bolton, Professor Patricia Hill-Collins, Professor Jack Halberstam and Professor Laura Doan. We cannot thank you enough for your time, energy, enthusiasm, incredible patience and support.
For many, women's studies is both a political and an academic endeavour. It allows us to question our education, to query our practice, and fosters the pursuit of radical scholarship. Women's studies truly teach us to transgress.